I now call this meeting of the Benton County Board of Education to order. Would you all please rise for the prayer by Mr. Mills and remain standing for the pledge of allegiance.
God, we give you thanks for the sunshine. We thank you for a good week to be off from school. We thank you for all the first responders and utility workers who kept us safe and kept the lights on during the storm. We ask that you be with those who have lost their lives of loved ones or property damage. Be with us as we come back to school so that we can finish out the year strong. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Pledge. Pledge allegiance to the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Michelle, will you please call roll? Mr. Mills.
Here.
Ms. Douglas. Here. Mr. Marks.
Here.
Mr. Blue.
Here.
Mr. Thornton.
Here.
Mr. Hargis.
Here.
Mr. Livingston.
Here.
Mr. Winters.
Here.
Mr. Hyatt.
Here.
Ms. Kinnon. Here. Ms. Arnold. Mr. Hedge.
Here.
11 present, 1 absent. With 11 present, 1 absent, we have a quorum. Next on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. Remember that also means that we're going to approve the consent agenda, which includes approval of March minutes, approval of substitutes pending background checks, approval of April 10th as Support Staff Appreciation Day, which is a U-Trust Day, and the approval of May 1st as Teacher Appreciation Day, which is a U-Trust Day.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as well as the consent agenda. Are there any changes? If not, we will vote. All those in favor of approving the agenda and the consent agenda, please say aye. Any opposed, please say no. Ayes have it. We have approved both the consent agenda and the regular agenda. Next on our agenda is a student presentation. Miss Karen, would you like to?
My name is Karen Hutchins, and I am the county's family involvement coordinator. And you know as well as I know, we do a lot of great things in our Benton County school system. Sometimes we don't do a great job about sharing that, but it's second nature for a lot of the things that we do. But at most every one of our schools, we have a parent advisory committee. We meet with them 3 times a year. We have their meetings. We share with them what's happening inside the school. We talk about the academics, we talk about our strengths, we talk about our weaknesses. And it wasn't one of the last ones we had at the Briarwood School. We brought Miss Chelsea's student to the PAC meeting, and they were showing the parents the way they do math now. You may or may not know, it's not like we used to do it. And we try to let the parents take a breather and let them know you probably really cannot help your child with math at home like you once could. So we've got some students. Chelsea's going to call out some math problems. They're going to show you what they do in class, how they know what they're doing, and the steps. And it's going to be a couple of different ways. Correct? Mm-hmm. Okay, so these students are going to come up and maybe he's going to get in between y'all and show you 4. And then if I can have the other kids come up, we're going to put some right here. Okay. So come on around. You're gonna show this group. Come on around. Show us not good. Okay. It's not big. Okay. Oh. So she's going to direct their math class, and you're going to listen, and the student's going to tell them what they're thinking and what they're doing to get the answer. Okay?
Okay. I'm sure y'all have heard this, or you've probably said it, that you hate the new math. Everybody hates it. I will be the first person to admit when I first started
teaching it, it was really hard to learn when I had been taught a certain way and to learn a new way. But now that I teach the new way, that's the only way that I do it. So y'all aren't doing this one yet. This is how I multiplied. I'm sure most of you did too, and this is how we divided. No disrespect at all to any of my teachers that I had, but when I would say, well, why are we doing that? Well, that's just how you do it. So, and sometimes still today we do that, but I try not to ever tell my students, well, that's just how it is. I always try to explain to them why we're doing what we do. So the old way, this way, it really teaches a procedure. The students really aren't understanding. So the new way teaches for the kids to understand. And to parents who learned it this way, it is harder to understand. So some of these lovely students are going to show y'all the new way that we multiply. So they're going to be doing this problem. Can y'all see that? They're going to be doing this problem, and they are going to use a partial product, a strategy called partial products, and then they're going to also use a strategy called, or using an area model to get the product for this answer. Okay, y'all can go ahead. That's why. Me too.
It's so easy. It's so easy.
Hey.
You are free. Stand up there. Stand up there, my shot. Yes, we are. Oh, yes, we
Grandparents, before you leave, well, that one don't count. First of all, you are welcome to stay, but if I was you, I'd get home and get ready for the basketball game, but you're welcome to stay. But in all seriousness, we just want to thank you for coming. We always talk about how many more good things are going on in our schools than sometimes what we hear. So on behalf of the board, first of all, thank you, students. That makes it so much better when we get to see students. And thank you, parents and grandparents, for all you do in supporting our school system. On behalf of the board, just thank you.
Next, and I didn't know my name was gonna be. I had no idea. Next on our agenda is Sydney Venture and OT occupational therapy presentation.
Hello, I'm Cindy Baker. I'm an OT student from UT Chattanooga. I'm graduating here in about 3 weeks, and this is the last thing since between graduation. So I'm going to be doing a little bit of talking about OT with y'all today. So I'm going to talk about my capstone experience, which is what I've been doing for the past 14 weeks. I'm going to talk about what is OT and how can it help in the school system, what kind of regulations govern OT in the school, some statistics about Benton County's provision of OT, and then comparing Benton County to other districts, and then just some specific teacher concerns that I've noticed over the past few weeks. So a capstone is basically a self-directed learning experience. So myself and all of my classmates, we found a setting that is either underutilizing OT or not utilizing OT at all. And we kind of go in and do a needs assessment and see in what ways could OT step in and help. So following my needs assessment over at the elementary school, I determined that I wanted to focus on improving attention and behaviors in the classroom and then advocate for increased OT services. So those are my two main objectives. So I want to start off by telling you a little bit about what OT is. So it's a branch of healthcare that helps individuals gain or regain independence in all areas of daily living. So a lot of people are familiar with like the medical side of OT. So if you have a loved one who had a stroke or some kind of motor vehicle accident and they lost the ability to dress themselves, bathe themselves, manage their medications, take care of their kids, basically anything they need to do in everyday life, OT can step in and help them regain those skills. But it's a little bit different with kids. So in occupational therapy school-based, practitioners can address any aspect that links to academic performance. So that can be a ton of things. So it can be handwriting, classroom setup, environmental adaptation, feeding, dressing, behavior management, sensory regulation, emotional regulation, peer interaction, social skills, attention, and so much more. So it's a big misconception that OTs only do handwriting in the school because there's so much more that they're able to do. So I want to talk a little bit about the difference between an OT and an OT assistant. So an OT is responsible for all aspects of service delivery. So they do the evaluation, the treatment planning, the goal setting. They do reevaluations, discharge planning, and they must have a master's or a doctorate degree. And then you have the assistant who works alongside the OT. And so they take the treatment plan and the goals that the OT has set, and they work towards meeting those goals, but they're not actually able to carry out the evaluation themselves. And they get an associate's degree. I mentioned that because they're both very valuable to have on the team. Occupational therapy assistants are reimbursed a little bit lower, so sometimes they're a more affordable option to have on the team if you have an OT who does your evaluations and then the OTA who steps in and does the treatment. But they're still working alongside each other. The OT checks in, makes sure everything's going smoothly. But the OT assistant will be the one doing the treatment. So the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act is the regulation put in place by the government that ensures that all students with disabilities are receiving the services they need, whether that is special education services, speech services, and they want to make sure that those kids are having a free and appropriate public education. They're not falling through the cracks, and they have all the support they need to succeed. So within that, you have the IEP regulations, and the IEP team will set goals for those students to make sure that they're advancing appropriately toward attaining their goals, that they're involved in all their extracurriculars and making progress, and that they can perform academically alongside their typically developing peers. So a lot of different kids can qualify for services under IDEA, and so there's a whole list of different diagnoses. You've got autism, ADHD, developmental delay, but then there's also kids who don't fall under these diagnoses, but they may still need a little bit of extra help, and in that case, they would qualify for a 504 plan, which differs a little bit because they're not going to receive any funding from the government to cover those services, but they may need a little bit of extra help as far as like a kid with ADHD, they may need to sit closer to the front of the classroom so that they're not distracted, or a kid with diabetes may need to step out to go to the nurse, so they need extra snacks. So that's just making sure that these kids can still get the services they need to be successful. So a kid with a 504 plan can still qualify for OT services. They just won't get the IDEA funding from the government for those. So a little bit about Benton County. These are our schools and how many students in each school have an IEP. So that means that they need special education services. They may potentially benefit from OT, that they're getting extra services to make sure that they can meet all of their goals in the school. And then there's 165 kids in the system with a 504 plan. So that comes up to 662 kids that may benefit from OT. But an observation that I've made, and this is not to ridicule the school system, I think this is one of the greatest school systems in Benton County, or in Tennessee, but my observation is that we're severely underutilizing OT. And I say that because of those students who may potentially benefit from OT, 43 of the 662 are getting OT services currently, and that's 6%. And I'm not saying that all of those kids need OT services, but I have a hunch that a lot more than 6% could benefit and reach their educational goals better if they were getting better services within the school. And then of those children, I don't know what happened on that slide, but they're getting OT services about 3 times a year. I haven't done any specific service delivery in the school, but I know that in the hospital and some of my rotations, we're seeing patients every day. outpatient pediatrics. That's where parents will take their kids to therapy. And they get services there about 1 to 3 times a week. So these kids in the school are getting it 3 times a year. So because of that statistic, I wanted to compare to some surrounding districts. So I called special education coordinators from around West Tennessee area. I didn't get replies from everybody that I would have liked to, but I wanted to include some of the replies that I got. So all of these that I talked to stated that they have OTs, and that by daily, that means that there is an OT in one of their schools daily. And everybody that I talked to said that their students are getting services at least 1 time per week. So that's Madison, Crockett, and Weakley County also included if they have an internal employee who's paid by the school system, or if they contract through another company like the Therapy and Learning Center, which is who Benton County contracts through, but then LeBonner also does a lot of contracts around the area. So then we have Henderson County, who their kids are getting therapy services 1 time per week, Stewart County, O'Brien County, Gibson County, and Hickman County. And like I said, I would have liked to talk to more schools like Huntington, McKenzie, Waverly, those that are a little bit closer to us and similar in size, but I wasn't able to get replies from them. But I just do that to show that rural areas can also have OT services that come and see these kids once a week. So then I want to talk a little bit about the options for funding. So like I mentioned, you have the IDA funds. And if I'm not mistaken, that is given to the school system based off of your students with IEPs that fall under that. And then another option is billing TennCare. So I know in the school that some speech therapists that work at the elementary school are eligible to bill through TennCare. And that's the same thing for OT. So the school doesn't have to pay for those services. You just bill it through the kids' insurance if they have that insurance, if the parent consents. So feel like one of our problems might be budget, and that's a good option to look into, that the kids' insurance can pay for it if they qualify. So then I did some conversations with some teachers at the elementary school, and I did a survey. Some of their main concerns with their kids are attention, behaviors, and handwriting, all of which an OT can assess. So I don't know for sure, but I feel like a lot of teachers probably feel burnt out dealing with these things every day. They're stopping to correct behaviors. They're trying to fix handwriting. They don't have the skills to do it. They don't have the time to do it. They have 20 kids in their classroom, and if one is causing a disruption, whether it's because they have a disability like ADHD or not, that can probably be a little disheartening, trying to meet your standards and having to deal with this stuff at the same time. So this is one of the surveys that I sent out that I just wanted to highlight. Basically what this says is, rate your level of agreement with the following statement. I believe my students' behavioral difficulties impact their ability or their classmates' ability to learn. 70.6% of teachers strongly agreed with that statement, and 29.4% agreed with that statement. The same thing with their attention difficulties. It had about the same response. And then it says, rate your level of agreement with the following statement. I believe my students' behavioral difficulties impact my ability to provide thorough instruction to the class. And 47.1% strongly agreed, and 47.1% agreed, and then 1 person was neutral on that statement. But I think that just shows the way teachers are feeling about these behavioral difficulties, other difficulties that they're experiencing on a day-to-day basis. And then I went into classrooms during my weeks here, and I took observations of just how many times these teachers are having to correct behavior and attention problems. Teachers are pausing on average 9.36 times per 45-minute sessions. The low end of that, I had one class that was 0, and then we were up to like even 15, 16 times in 45 minutes. So I can imagine if I'm up here talking to all of y'all and y'all are chattering or out of your seats, that might be a little disheartening. You have to stop every 5 minutes until you get back on track. So I also did a SWOT analysis, so that strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I did this as a part of my assignment for school, but I thought it was good to include here. So strengths of the elementary school, these students have so many resources. There's ABA, speech, counseling, RTI, special education, the CDC room. So there's a lot of supports in place for these students, but I always think that there's room to do more. We also have teachers who are engaged and willing to collaborate with related services such as OT. These teachers are always looking for ways to help their students, and they've been really supportive of me and my time, and I know that they really want what's best for the students, so that's a big strength. Weaknesses are limited support for students with physical intellectual or developmental disability. So I know that speech therapy is great. We've got lots of speech therapists in that school, but PT and OT both they're seeing students about 3 times a year. And so if you go back to that big list of everything that OTs can help with, that's a lot of extra help that these kids are missing out on. And then there's also a lack of space in the school to provide services. There's one empty classroom downstairs that's used for a bunch of different things, but other than that, there's not really a great space for therapy services to be provided. I know that when Barbara OT comes, she is usually providing services in the hallway. And then because of this lack of services, there's a decreased opportunity for full inclusion for students with additional needs. And then some opportunities. We already have an existing contract with the Therapy and Learning Center, so it's not we have to go out and make a new contract. You could just up the amount of time that she's coming, and then you can also use that Medicaid TennCare funding for services. And then some threats. We've got children falling behind due to lack of related services. So you might not think that something as simple as handwriting could hold a kid back from reaching their full potential, but handwriting is the basis for all kinds of stuff that these kids do. So if they can't hold their pencil, they can't write a sentence, they're just going to keep getting more behind and more behind and more behind. And then living in a rural area limits knowledge about therapy. I didn't ask y'all at the beginning, but I'm sure if I'd said who knows what occupational therapy is, not very many people would have raised their hand. And that's fine. I didn't know what OT was really until I started school. That's just part of the area that we live in. People just don't really know much about it. And then you've got risk for legal repercussions. I'm worried that if a parent comes into an IEP meeting and they really know what their kids' rights are, they could pursue legal advice, whatever they want to do there. So I just wanted to include that in there. And then you have the risk of teacher burnout due to lack of services for students. So these teachers are doing everything they can, and I'm sure a lot of them probably feel really burnt out at the end of the day. So I think OT is a way that we can support not only the students, but the teachers as well. So I wanted to end with 3 quotes. I talked to a lot of different people throughout this process. So this is from the special education supervisor in Obion County, and I asked her, do you think that providing OT services to your students is beneficial? And she said, some of our students are adversely impacted educationally by their OT deficits. Without the intervention, these students may never be able to access the general education classroom as well as they do and be successful. And then I talked to an OT from Hickman County, and I was just telling her a little bit about Benton County and how services are provided. And she said these students are only seen 3 times per year. That absolutely breaks my heart. And then I also talked to a school-based OT who's been practicing in Colorado for about 30 years. And she said, I would encourage you to think about 2 things. Is this method of service delivery ethical, and is it effective? So that's all I have. My goal here is just to educate you all about occupational therapy and all the great things it can do in the school system. Maybe spark some conversation when you're looking at budgets and everything. So yeah, I know it's not an overnight change, but I hope that maybe I've got some wheels turning, and maybe here in a few years we might see some more OT services. Do you have any questions?
Probably asked a lot of questions, but occupational therapy, we do not have a therapist in our school system, what you're saying?
We have one who's contracted through the Therapy and Learning Center, and she's in the school in and out. She's seeing students about 3 times a year.
And I saw a lot of there were full inclusion in the classroom. I can understand that, and I can understand that all kids need to be taught, and they need to advance. But at the same time, when that student that is an IEP student that is in there that needs help, and he or she is still in the classroom, and the teacher has to call them down every 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 minutes to keep her class going, or his class going. What about those other students in there? Are they falling behind because of this also?
That's not something that I can answer with confidence, because that would take some research and everything, but I do know that teachers are not meeting all their standards. They're not getting through all of their curriculum because they're having to pause so frequently to stop and correct. A lot of times, I didn't take direct notes on this, a lot of times it is the same 2 or 3 kids that are causing these disruptions. And so I would say that a lot of the other kids who are trying to learn and trying to advance are probably missing out on a little bit of instruction because their teachers having to pause so frequently.
I won't ask anything else, but I have lots of questions.
That's okay. That's what I'm here for.
And I see I see the problem, I see kind of, between rock and hard place, you got these kids in there that need help, we don't have the ones that can help them out, but at the same time, all students are gonna suffer because of everything within the classroom, and all the distractions, I'm gonna say. And, I don't know how we can get that to a change, or get that to have occupational therapists that come in, and one in every school, or that pull the students out and work with them. And I guess that's what that therapist does. You know, they work with them so many minutes of the day, or so many hours a day, or is that something that the kids will go back into the classroom? Is that right?
Yeah, so the OT would do an initial evaluation, and there they would determine how often they think that kid needs therapy. Usually it would be probably about 30 minutes, one time a week. If they had the time, 3 times a week, 5 days a week would be ideal, but usually the gold standard is about one time a week for about 30 minutes. And something that's really heavily pushed on is pushing in for services, so going into their classroom, going into their natural environment, and working on things like handwriting, emotional regulation, all of that with them. But if that's something that's going to be a distraction for everybody else in the room, or if that child works better one-on-one, they can also pull them out. But something that they teach us is to try to push in to the classroom as often as you can for those services.
And thank you for your answer. I appreciate that. Appreciate what you do. And congratulations, in 3 weeks you walked the line there.
What made you choose this path?
I don't really know. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to be a nurse, and realized I didn't. And so I talked to all kinds of different people, and a respiratory therapist that had worked with my granddad told me to look into OT. And so I shadowed, and I just fell in love with it. So couldn't see myself doing anything else. Well, thank y'all so much. If you have any questions, you can email me. I'd love to chat with you.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is the approval of the spring planning report. Are we done? Benton County Board of Education held their annual spring planning meeting on Tuesday, March the 5th, 2025 at the VRE Support Conference Room. Present was myself, Vice Chair Mr. Livingston, Ms. Betty Jo Douglas, Mr. Thornton, Mr. Hargis, Mr. Winters, Mr. Hott, Ms. Arnold, Mr. Hedge, Mr. Mills, Mr. Blue, Mr. Marks, Director of Schools, Mr. Florence, and TSBA Executive Director, Dr. Tammy Grissom. Tammy Grissom, who is the Executive Director of TSBA, presented the training on teaming and the school board. Our agenda was attached. I recommend that we approve the spring planning report. Do we have a second?
Second, good Marks.
Any discussion? Do you want to say anything about it, Mr. Florence? I enjoyed it.
It was good, and we had 12 out of 12 of 10, that was,
I guess you did a good job, you know? Over all these years, I think you did a good job. You did it all.
Anything else? Anybody else? I will say it's nice to talk to her because she sees every school board and she can tell you the stories from the other school boards, and it makes me very thankful for what we have. With no further discussion, we will vote. All those in favor of approving the spring planning report, please say aye. Any opposed, please say no. Ayes have it. The spring planning report has been approved. Next on our agenda is approval of the budget committee report. Mr. Hargis, would you read that for us, please?
Benton County Board of Education Budget Committee met on Thursday, March 20th, 2025, 5:30 p.m. Present for myself, Mr. Winter, Mr. Hedge, Ms. Arnold, Ms. Douglas, Hyde, Mark, and Director Florence. We met to discuss and review the following: teacher bonus under the Education Freedom Act, Preschool support staff raised to $2,500. 2025-26 proposed general purpose budget revenue and expenditure. Add full-time PE teacher to holiday school and review fund balance. Recommendation was made to approve a full-time PE position at holiday school for the 2025-26 school year. They are all approved. Meeting was adjourned, and I offer that as a motion for approval.
We have a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the budget committee report. Any further discussion about this?
No, I think once you approve the minutes, that's good enough to approve that new position.
Okay. No further discussion? If not, we will vote. All those in favor of, Ms. Michelle, will you please call up?
Mr. Mills,
Yes.
Miss Douglas. Miss Douglas? Yes. Mr. Marks?
Yes.
Mr. Blue?
Yes.
Mr. Thornton?
Yes.
Mr. Hargis?
Yes.
Mr. Livingston?
Yes.
Mr. Winters?
Yes.
Mr. Hyatt?
Yes.
Miss Kennon? Mr. Hedge?
Yes.
Would anyone like to change their vote? 11 yes.
With 11 yes, budget committee report has been approved. Next on our agenda is approval of the budget resolutions. There are several. Please don't make me read them.
Move we approve as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the budget resolutions as printed. Mr. Fox, you want to?
I'll go through them real fast. First one, obviously, water bill, just, we had to move a little money here at the end to cover our water bill, so we moved that out of, insurance. The two biggies, I put in your memo, first of all, the 500,000 out of fund balance is for the new textbook adoption. We talked about that all year. We don't have much of a choice. I think Ms. Phelps, she was here. I don't know where she was. You can blame her, but no, Miss Linda in the textbook to be puts a lot of time in that. I actually think it'll be a little less than that, but figured that will cover the cost. And then, in next year's budget, we've increased textbooks. So that's what that one is. It did the 200,000 that had a fund balance. That is to lead our part in the security cameras to make sure every school has the same technology. And so that's what that one's for. And the other ones are just moving money here as we finish out the year. You do see the insurance recovery. That's for the chiller at Briarwood, and we just submitted another one today for $10,000. So the fund just keeps on coming from when we were flooded that Wednesday before Thanksgiving or Tuesday, whatever day that was. So I'll be glad to answer your question.
What about this last one, the community working certain cost office grant?
That is the federal grant that we received for the cameras, and Dr. Shannon sent in a change to that so we could use more funds towards the cameras. So that $428,000 is that COPS grant, and we're going to spend that on the security cameras. Your actual expense right now is only like $160,000 for your match, but since we're moving money, we wanted to make sure we had enough to cover it. If we don't use it, it'll go right back into fund balance. So, but that's what that. I think we originally had a little over 300 budgeted just for cameras, and Dr. Shannon resubmitted that, and we just put that so we can get the cameras in all the schools, which I think is what we need to do.
Any other questions? If not, we will vote on the budget resolutions as printed. Ms. Michelle, will you please call roll?
Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Miss Douglas? Yeah. Mr. Marks?
Yes.
Mr. Blue?
Yes.
Mr. Thornton?
Yeah.
Mr. Hargis?
Yes.
Mr. Livingston?
Yes.
Mr. Winters?
Yes.
Mr. Hyatt?
Yes.
Miss Kennon?
Yes.
Mr. Hedge?
Yes.
Would anyone like to change their vote? 11 yes.
With 11 yes, the budget resolutions have all passed. Next on our agenda is approval of the executive committee report. The executive committee of the Benton County Board of Education met on Monday, March the 24th, 2025 by phone at 8:30 a.m. A recommendation was made to approve the Gibson County Electric Internet bid agreement pending board approval on April the 7th. All approved members present were myself and Mr. Florence. And once we approve this report, we will then get into the actual agreement. I recommend that we approve the report. We have recommendation and a second. Do you want to?
I will. This is pretty in-depth, probably need Mr. Bailey here, but for years, our E-rate, we have contracted with a company called Epic, and they do all our E-rate funding. With that said, our internet service has come through E&A for, I guess, 12 years, ever since I've been director. And we've always worked under a contract through Metro Nashville. I don't know any other way to say it. Politics has affected that some, and they did not award Metro. It's Zayo now is what E&A is. So Epic had to put our internet service out for bid. A special thanks to Scott Owens. He really can't say anything as far as who we select, but and Mr. Thornton has a lot of knowledge of this, of the internet use, and we use the E&A to run our fiber so we could, our local cooperative, electric cooperative would have some input into that. So when we bid, you can see we received 3 bids, one from Gibson County Electric, which is just like Benton County Electric, just larger, and they do provide this internet service, Irish Networks, and Zayo. So this is kind of hard to read, but there's 2 different bids, and if you total them, you'll see, if you look at the 2 pages, that Gibson County Electric is quite a bit cheaper. Now, E-rate pays 85% of this. So we're not paying that. I see Brad's eyes come out when he looked. But we're only paying 15% because of E-rate. And so Gibson County when you look at the bid right now, we're paying about $3,600 a month for internet service. It's going to drop to about $1,800 to $2,000. Now that switchover will be coming 1st of July. I think, I don't want to speak on behalf of the electric company, but I can speak on behalf of the school system. I do like the idea that we're working with a company kind of like Benton County Electric, of people we know. That makes sense, Mr. Thornton, that people that they work with on a daily basis with electricity. I did call the director at Gibson County. They've been using Gibson County Electric for the past 5 years, said they did not notice any changes. Now, obviously, it's just like E&A. There's going to be days when we have fiber cuts and internet goes out. So Scott recommends this. Ms. Rose Mary with Epic recommends this, and the bid is Gibson County. When I first looked at it, I thought, well, Gibson County's not the lowest, but if you look at both pages, Gibson County is quite a bit lower. And the bottom line is it's a little less than $2,000 a month, and we have been paying $3,600. That switchover is coming July 1. There'll probably be some heartaches anytime you have that big a switchover, but we really didn't have a choice. So I would recommend, as soon as I have already signed the contract, but I also have to put a note on that pending your approval, because they can't start until it's approved tonight. So quicker we get that done, I have talked to our technology department. I've talked to Rosemary. I have called other directors in Gibson County. I even called Mr. Owens. Of course, he can't. Once I told him who the low bid was, he said they had his recommendation as well. So I think that's enough for me. Any questions?
Question,
Yes.
is this a 5-year contract? or-
Yes.
Okay.
Now, but there will be I will have to take this to the commission because it's a 5-year, and that's normal. Anytime it's over a year, they can't put the clause in here that we can opt out in a year like we any other contract that it has an opt-out each year, then we can, it don't need board approval. But if it's over a year contract, then the commission will have to approve it this month. And I'll explain that to them at the budget meeting next Tuesday night. ENA, which is now, I think it's Zayo, I guess the way you pronounce it. Is that right, Mr. Thornton?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Is this new hardware and equipment or just service?
My understanding is they're going to use the existing fiber, which was a big concern. If somebody got the bid, he'd come in and run fiber right beside what we already have, and they're going to utilize what the electric company ran 8 or 10 years ago, Mr. Thornton, and the speeds are actually higher too. So,
Any further discussion? With no further discussion, we will vote. All those in favor of approving the executive committee report, please say aye. Those please say no. Ayes have it. The executive committee report has been approved.
Can you write me down as pass on that one?
actually,
Next on our agenda is to approve the internet service agreement with Gibson County Electric. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
Second, Ben Marks.
We have a motion and a second to approve the internet service agreement with Gibson County Electric. Any discussion about this part of it? If not, Ms. Michelle, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Mills,
Yes.
Ms. Douglas,
Yes.
Mr. Marks,
Yes.
Mr. Blue,
Yes.
Mr. Thornton,
Pass.
Mr. Hargis,
Yes.
Mr. Livingston,
Yeah.
Mr. Winters,
Yeah.
Mr. Hyatt,
Yes.
Ms. Kennon,
Yes.
Mr. Hedge.
Yes.
Would anyone like to change their vote? 10 yes, 1 pass.
With 10 yes, the internet service agreement with Gibson County Electric has been approved. Next on our agenda is the director's report.
I wouldn't say it's short, but I better not say that. But first of all, thanks to Miss Karen and the students from Broadwood School. As we always, it's just great to see our kids and the good things that are going on. But I say it a bunch, but we tend to hear the other side, and there's a whole lot more of that side going on at all our schools. And I don't just say that, I know it. I see it daily. So thank you to our students and our staff for that. We're proud of Miss Sydney. I'm glad that she could have the opportunity to intern at elementary school, and Sydney's going to be successful at whatever. I will tell you, and Miss Joy's out there, she can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm speaking from experience, my Ashley. We do have OT and PT. Our TAs cover that, so we don't have licensed OTs and PTs, but we do. Our assistants do that with them. So I didn't want you to live here and say, because I think about, okay, if Ashley seen her PT and OT probably 3 times a year, but those assistants were walking her quite often and doing those PT and OT things. So no, it's not as good as a licensed person, and absolutely agree with what she said. It would be great if we could put those in the budget. And we, Miss Joy, I tell you, we've come a long way with contracting and billing. The insurance, it's a whole lot easier to contract and let them bill the insurance than the school system trying to bill the insurance. Because I think if we start asking Miss Joy to bill insurance, I'll be looking for another special ed supervisor. So I did want to say that, because everything she said is true, but I didn't want you to leave here thinking that we only see the kids once, 3 times a year. Is that not right, Miss Joy? This right here, the resolution for the teacher bonus from the Education Freedom Act, we do not have to approve that until May, or vote on it. Okay, that's up to you whether you vote, whether you approve it or not. We have to submit that in E-Plan by June 1st. So from talking to some of you, I'm not sure, we might not need to have further discussion. I did have one ready if you wanted to vote on that tonight, but in order for the teachers to get the $2,000 bonus, the board does have to approve that section 4 of the Education Freedom Act in order for our teachers to receive the bonus. Now, I put a draft copy in your memo. I should have put another copy in your packet, and I don't think I did, but I did put one in your memo. And if you don't remember, did I give it to you, Ms. Shauna? The only part that I need you to think about is, well, obviously, number one, do you want to approve it? That's totally up to the school board, and I understand both sides. But the last sentence in that, and I'm just paraphrasing, basically says that we agree with Section 4 with the Education Freedom Act for the teachers to be able to receive the bonus, but we do not agree with any other sections of it, including using taxpayer dollars for private education. But from just talking to a couple of you, I think we're going to have a couple meetings this month, and I think we could put that in there. We had a budget meeting that's absolutely tied to the budget, and I think we need to have more discussion until we vote. Is that okay with everybody? We just have to vote in May, okay, either yay or nay. So, okay. That's a touchy subject for me, and I'm just going to leave it at that.
If I ask a question,
Absolutely.
who wrote that? Who wrote that? Did they just get somebody off the street to write it, or did they actually have qualified people to write it?
Are you talking about the education?
It's so contradictory. I mean,
There's been a lot of political uproar over this because there was talk that there was things sent out that the boards had to agree to the Education Freedom Act. Obviously, this is taped, but I'll tell Governor Lee. Obviously, it was we got you that you got to approve that. But anyway, it's approved. The bottom line is, if you don't approve, then the teachers won't get the bonus, and we'll roll on. If you do approve it, they'll get the bonus, and we'll go. But it was part of the Education Freedom Act in order for the teachers to receive the bonus that the local school board had to approve a resolution opting into that section of the Education Freedom Act for them to receive that bonus.
It's $2,500.
It's $2,000.
Before taxes.
And that is before benefits. So basically, the teachers would receive $1,300 to $1,400 probably.
About $500,000 probably.
The state is paying your part. The state is paying the district part of benefits, but just like we all know, if you get a check, you do have to pay your part of the income tax. So and there's a 25% on a bonus, and we have to code it as a bonus. We will discuss that in our budget meeting, and that's the next thing I have. We need to schedule a building and property committee and a budget committee meeting. The reason on the building and property, Mr. That's you, right, Mr. Livingston? Sure of that. There's been a couple of districts that's piggyback off a roof bid of Corio Roofing. And they have this Duralast roof it's a little more expensive, but they have had a lot of luck. And if we could schedule that, I could get Corio to come in and explain the roofing system. Of course, like any salesman, they're saying we better do it as quick as we can with the tariffs coming. And so the price that they have sent us is good through the end of the month. The one thing they did say at the junior high, if we decided as a board to move forward, they could get that done before school started next year. But you're talking about $1.2 million. The fund just keeps on coming. But I would like to, is that okay with you, Mr. Livingston, and I have Corio come, and I thought we might do that at 5 o'clock. Then we could do a budget committee at 6, and I'll leave it up to you. I would rather do April the 24th in case we need to have another budget meeting Chair Keenan on the 1st. That would give us 2 dates because the budget is coming fast. They usually try to pass it in May. I'm gonna have to see that to believe it this year.
So building and final,
On 4/24 and budget, we'll say at 6. That's a Thursday. And I'll send you a text. Bye. And then I have, it's hard to believe, but graduation is May the 16th. Big Sandy at 6, which will be historic. And then Camden Central High School at 7:30. And then the last thing that I have, some of you have asked me about the evaluation contract, so that's just, you don't have to have that done till the end of July, but end of June. Obviously, with the budget coming up, that's something that we could schedule personnel. But I'll get with Chair Kennan on that. And if you don't want to meet, that's up to you. And then the last thing I have, I seem like I've said this a lot in the last few years, but I just thank you for the thoughts and prayers weeks ago. And the visit, those of you that showed up for visitation for my mother-in-law, that was all sudden. And I was fortunate to have 2 moms, so I appreciate your prayers on that. And please keep GW and Melissa in prayer. That's been a hard time for him. So with that said, that's all I have.
Question,
Yes, sir.
this personnel committee you mentioned, in my mind, we got that 45-day period. We do your contract before the next meeting or something like that. You taking all that into account? Okay.
If you'll have to give that 10-day notice. I think as long as you do it in May, we can do it sometime in May and then have that done at the June meeting, you should be good. We can always adjust the budget if it passes early. Any other questions?
When do you feel like this gonna be done?
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up, Mr. Thornton. Miss Betty Jo called the state, and in order for you to receive payment, they said in order for you to receive payment, because I think we still have some that didn't receive payment last year. But in order for you to receive payment for your spring planning, you have to fill out that W-9 and send it to the State Department. Is that right, Miss Betty Jo? So Miss Betty Jo has been through the process. I think it's worth your time. Because I think it's $75 for. Okay. So, all right. And if you have trouble getting a hold of anybody, call me or Miss Michelle. We'll get the right number for you to call. Anything else? All right. Thank you.
Do we have any visitors?
No.
Oh, Miss Kennedy, I'm sorry. I do have one thing. Please, some of you may not know him, but special to our school family, James Mayo. He's the maintenance at the Career Technical Center. He's had pretty serious health issue. He's in Jackson, Madison County in ICU. Mayo's been with us, I think 12 years, because I'm thinking he's come in when I come in as director. Just a great employee, and Mayo and his family need your prayers as he fights this illness. So please put James Mayo in your prayers.
Mr. Lawrence. Could I mention the benefit for CRIM? Olivia Sanders, teacher at Briarwood, has a benefit for baby CRIM May 3rd at Briarwood from 4 to 8. So, Joey Hill's cooking. There'll be good food. There'll be a band afterwards, and there'll be a silent auction. So, anybody who could come out, we appreciate it.
May what?
May 3rd,
What time did you say that?
4 to 8.
And it's gonna be fireworks.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I got one more thing. Thanks to Mr. Carter for I talked to him Saturday and Sunday. People don't realize how lucky we are that, as the teachers say, maybe Mr. Carter's too good.
Not for much longer.
But he called Saturday and we were checking on the roads and then talked to him yesterday. And, it's from their hard work during all this rain that we were able to go to school. I know some would rather not, but we are fortunate to have those roads ready to go. So thanks to Mr. Carter and his staff. Now shut up.
Well, he showed me a picture of his new sponge trucks. So if anybody asks, that's how he did this. He has sponge trucks. That's what he told my kids. Our reminders. Building and Property Committee meeting, April 24th, that's a Thursday at 5 p.m. Budget that same day at 6. Graduation is May the 16th. Big Sandy is at 6. CHS is at 7:30. We have new chairs. It's going to be wonderful, isn't it? I'm excited. Baby Friends benefit and Olivia Fowler Sanders benefit May the 3rd at Briarwood from 4 to 8. Anything that I'm forgetting? Our next meeting is May the 5th at 6 here in the support center. Be thinking about this resolution and whether we want that fourth paragraph in there, the one that says therefore be it resolved. We affirm our intention to participate. However, we do not agree with the other sections. Be thinking about whether we want to put that in there or not. And whether you want to individually vote yes or no. Anything else? If not, the chair would entertain a
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye. Meeting is adjourned.